thanks for calling in to our North Iowa Local Food Coalition quarterly meeting. We do have a focus for this meeting is to talk about our food waste team, food waste recovery, and upcycling. And before we do that, we do have some great presentations queued up. But first, we wanted to do a quick round robin as far as who's on the call with a brief update. You have a quick, like 30-second nugget to share of something local food related that you've been working on that you want everyone to know about. And since there are quite a few people on here, I will call your name and you can unmute yourself and then you can share your update. So name, organization, or business, or whatever hat you're wearing today, and then your local food update. How about, well, Steve Lane, you're first on my list. So you introduced Jill, but want to introduce yourselves again and share an update.
Okay, I'm only going to be here through the 30th of June. I've finally, I think for the fourth time, have decided I'm going to make it retirement official. And Jill's been hired to replace me, and you folks have no idea what her capabilities are. She's got a lot of really bright ideas, and I'm really excited for her to take the program because it'll be far superior to what it's been. So I can guarantee you that.
Well, it's continued trajectory upward, right?
That's right. That's right.
We hope so. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And you shared about your goats and your plants and all the things. I mean, were you able to get kids on the farm with COVID and all of that, or is it pretty much you guys that are doing it right now?
Not really. There were families that asked if they could come to the farm, and I said, as long as you don't tell anybody. Yeah, you probably can. I had a couple of them that did kind of on their own, and you know, we stayed a long ways away from each other, and the kids could go in and, you know, most of the kids knew all the animals anyway, so they could go in and kind of be okay with that. But not, you know, we had a scheduled time for all the kids, and that kind of went by the wayside, you know, on the 16th of March. So, you know, that was really too bad because we had a lot of neat things planned for the spring. We had plants that we had actually gone to get over at Stillwater Nursery and Orchard, and you know, we had quite a few, and then we started tomato plants of our own. We figured we must have had over 300
Yeah.
tomato plants. I have 23 growing in my garden. I think Jill has a ton in hers.
20, yeah.
Yeah, she has about 20. So we took and then here in the school, we probably have another 20 or 30.
Yep.
So we should, if the farmer's market probably needs tomatoes down the road, we should be able to supply tons.
Hey, that'd be pretty great, right? Can never have too many tomatoes. There's plenty of things to do with them. Or maybe that can be part of the discussion that we have. All right, Jim Lindberg.
Hi, I'm Jim Lundberg. I am a high school ag teacher at Charles City, Iowa, an FFA advisor. And I've hopped in and out of some meetings with you people before over the last couple years and gone to some of your meetings. And then Brett Spurgeon is the other ag teacher in Charles City. He was here a minute ago. I don't know where he went, but he's vital in a lot of the stuff that we're doing. We've been, I guess my connection this year has been, we're working with we'll explain later. Several groups on building some raised beds for some low-income families in Charles City and starting some projects like that. Plus our FFA chapter's always had our own gardens that we donate food with. And this year we put in a much larger garden out at the Ffa County Fairgrounds. And so we'll talk more about that later. That's about all I have.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. Amy Gilbert, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy. I work on community outreach and product development for Net Zero. So we're a food upcycling company in the Twin Cities, and I guess our biggest recent update is we normally provide like spent grain flour and spent grains to work with primarily to restaurants, which obviously has not been a thing these past few months up until recently. So we've kind of had to shift our business model so that we're working direct with consumers a lot more than we have in the past. You know, on the weekends, we're out in front of a brewery, like selling packs of pancake mix directly to consumers, which is not something we anticipated doing. And it's funny timing too, because I just came on full time. I've been an intern at Net Zero for about 1.5 years. And now, as soon as I started full time, we had to temporarily shift our entire business model. So it's been a bit of an adventure. I think we're getting back into some of our B2B work that we were doing before, but it's definitely been an interesting time for selling raw products to companies.
For sure. That's like a good entry into the full-time job, right? Here you go. Switch. Oh, food system work can do that to all of us, right? Bree Miller, how about you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Bree Miller. I'm a program assistant with Iowa State Extension and Outreach, Farm Food and Enterprise Development. I'm also a split position with Community Economic Development, but the majority of my work is involved in food systems, and I'm very interested in resource management and food waste. So I work with Courtney Long down there at the bottom too. So we're going to present later, and I'm very excited about it. So.
Yes, thanks for being on. Aubrey, I know you also have a presentation coming, but.
Hi, sorry, one of my team members just jumped in and we were chatting. I'm Aubrey Alvarez with Eat Greater Des Moines, and we'll be sharing some of our food rescue and Operation Fresh Produce stuff. Right now I was just trying to coordinate with my colleague Steven to move some excess Girl Scout cookies. So, you know, you never know where the food rescue will lead you. So this is a good one. We have fish and Girl Scout cookies. So we're really living the dream over here.
All right. That's like quite the combo.
Yeah.
Either one can find their way to my house, but.
Perfect.
Awesome. Dennis Johnson, how about you?
Yes, Dennis Johnson with Worth County Extension, and we've been doing a program quite a few years with the 6th grade garden group at our school. Our 4-H has a garden at the Fairgrounds. It's got 21 garden plots there. And so we've been doing that with about 40 kids for lots and lots of years, about a dozen years at least. And then this year, because of COVID-19, no school to work with, so we opened up to kind of a community garden. And we put one large garden in next to an assisted living facility. We have 2 4-H's that are working with some senior citizens, master gardeners on that facility. And then we also have come up with 10 of our 21 garden plots at the Fairgrounds. It's a 4-H garden, like I said. And we've got those are going to be community gardens to give away the produce out of those. And then we have another 12 kids that planted gardens that are all ages, not just 6th graders, but all ages this year planted about 12 garden plots at the Fairgrounds as well. So a lot of things going on with 4-H'ers, a lot of good produce being produced. And our big challenge is going to be to get that produce out. And I think I'm interested to hear what Jim's saying about how he's distributing that garden plot that he's got there. Sounds like a big one at the Fairgrounds, you said, Floyd County Fairgrounds, I believe. And so it'll be interesting to hear how you're getting that out, because we'll be looking for that for ourselves this summer.
Definitely. Definitely. That's what it's all for, is connections and brainstorming, right? So that's perfect. That's exciting to hear so many plots, though. It's great. Mallory. Grace. Hey.
Hi, Mallory. My internet's really terrible. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm with Healthy Harvest of North Iowa. I'm the Food Access Project Coordinator. One of the many things that I've been doing is learning how to make recipe demonstrations and make them virtual this year, since the Charlie cart that I've been using to do my mobile demonstrations isn't allowed at markets right now. So we've been learning how to do recipe demonstrations virtually. And I'll let Ellen, she just ran off, but Ellen is a contractor working with us this year. She has an interest in food waste. I'll let her tell you more about what she's got going on. But we've been also working with Net Zero with Amy and just got a new shipment today. We'll be kind of testing out some of their spent grains and how we can use those in our home. It's a project we're working on right now. So that's all I have.
Super exciting. You've been doing some great videos, which we'll talk about a little more too with that. And Ellen, good timing.
Hi, sorry. My dog was taking a hat into the other room, so didn't want her to grab it for too long. So yeah, as Molly said, I'm helping them this summer out with the virtual kind of stuff right now with recipe demonstrations and stuff. I'm a student at Iowa State and I am studying culinary food science with a minor in sustainability. And so it was really exciting to hear that this was happening because I just can't wait to be a part of it and kind of learn from you guys because hopefully someday I'll be able to bring it to a larger scale in the food industry. And that's the goal, to kind of switch some of the sustainability that they have, at least right now, just with food waste and with like packaging and stuff like that. So yeah.
So true. It's a great group to be a part of, us for sure. We're lucky to have you on. Thank you. Lauren Connell.
Hello. So I am an FFA member, so I am here with Jim, and we are kind of Mr. Lundberg, we are a part of the big gardening that we put in at our fairgrounds. And so I kind of took initiative on the Northeast Iowa food truck and just contacting people with that, and just all about growing and donating it to other people. So we'll have a presentation with more about that later.
Love it. You've done some great work. Thanks for joining us. Courtney.
Hey all, my name's Courtney Long. I'm the Food Systems Program Manager within Farm, Food, and Enterprise Development, and split with Community Economic Development as well. Happy to see some familiar faces. It's been a while since I was in North Iowa, so good to see you. And I'll just be helping share about some of our work in Lynn County with Bree later.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks. And Jan.
Hi. Okay. I am Jan Libby. I live between Kanawha and Goodell in southern Hancock County and farm with my husband One Step at a Time Gardens. We are active producers with North Iowa Fresh. That is a collaborative of about 10 or more producers, and seems to be expanding every week, number of producers that we have. So today was a delivery day. Tomorrow is from producers. Tomorrow is a delivery to our consumers. And one of the conversations I've gotten into this spring is with Hawkeye Harvest Food Bank, where we had some additional production capacity. And obviously they always are having folks in need, but especially this COVID time and so forth, having additional folks in need. So they've actually made a purchase of a number of boxes of produce, and we started that delivery with them last week. That would be continuing throughout the rest of our delivery season. And Marie and I have talked a little bit about the other initiatives that are going to be talked about here, and said we really wanted to engage the conversation that we're having with Hawkeye Harvest with the context of some of these other conversations. I'm really interested in the discussion around purchasing from local producers versus various elements and efforts for donating food to food banks. I think it's a conversation to be had as we look at the whole food insecurity issues. I've been interesting to read a book by Andrew Fisher called Big Hunger, and I can't remember the subtitles to it, but it's looking at the big picture strategies around hunger and may lead into some of this at some point as well. So glad to be here. Glad to have some strawberries that we just picked up from Furley Farm. Pretty fun. As see, and look forward to the conversation.
Yes. Man, if we were all together, we could totally have strawberries as snacks. We're finally coming out of the field, so it's awesome. Andrew, are you there for an update?
Yes. Hi, I'm Andrea Ebelsizer with North Iowa Fresh, and I'm in Clear Lake, Iowa, as you can see. And Jan kind of stole my thunder a little bit and talked about the Hawkeye Harvest stuff that we've been working on. But the other exciting thing that North Iowa Fresh has been working on is just bringing on new producers to provide more of a diversity for our Bounty Box customers. And this week we're excited that we started with some bread and some honey, and we're investigating some options for maple syrup for next week. So, and I think I did see that there was some communications between Mallory with Healthy Harvest and Hawkeye Harvest. So I would like to see where that goes with Mallory being able to provide some help to the Hawkeye Harvest folks as to how to use some of the products that we provide, because while we are providing a lot of the standard things, we are also including things like mustard greens and rhubarb and things like that that might be less familiar to some people and to know what to do with it. So I think that's a very good partnership that has great potential. So
For sure. Definitely opportunity there. And Mike. Are you on there? There.
I'm here. Sorry. Off mute. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Ewer. I work for Sodexo. We're one of the largest contract food service companies in the world, actually. And I recently moved to Clear Lake, Iowa. And with Sodexo, I am on their corporate Stop Hunger committee and also their sustainability committee. And here in Clear Lake, I'm on the board for the Clear Lake Ventura Food Pantry. And I'm just kind of interested in seeing what I can do in this area from food hunger and sustainability issues. So happy to be here.
Absolutely.
I have one more guest here that I was going to have him introduce himself now.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brett Spurgeon. I'm the other ag teacher here at Charleston, and I'm working with Jim and Lauren on, our gardens and all of our food projects.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And I failed to introduce myself. I think I know most of you, but just in case. My name is Maria Boyd. I work with Healthy Harvest of North Iowa. And a fun project update that truly doesn't necessarily have to do with food waste and recovery, but just a fun tidbit that we're working on is we've been focusing a lot on our new curbside market program that is for online sales for farmers markets, trying to increase the convenience and accessibility for farmers market sales to an ever-growing online and busy world, right? So we're excited about that and what that looked like going, as part of COVID, but really extends beyond, creating more market opportunities for our producers in the area. So it's going well, getting the pieces started, but there's always room for growth, and you always wish you could snap your fingers and have a system be perfect right off the bat. But there's always little things we're working on. But in general, excited by the direction of that program. So that is my update. So thank you all for being on here. I love the different backgrounds and different perspectives and just different types of organizations or businesses that are on the call today. So that's super exciting for a conversation. Since in general, just to touch base on the coalition before we dig into our big conversation, a couple quick updates we have on our project teams. Our farmers market project team really the real update there is that farmers markets are happening and restrictions were just lifted by the governor last week. So now we are allowed to have all of our vendors there, not just food and farm products. So that's exciting. Obviously, COVID-19 has had an impact on farmers markets and how we had to adapt to the rules and regulations, just like everyone else in our state, country, and world, right? But in general, to my knowledge, all farmers markets in the North Central Iowa area are up and rolling in person. So that's been exciting. But with all that focus, we didn't really necessarily do a whole ton of other projects or collaborative initiatives yet. So kind of a lean update for farmers markets. Farm to School is another one of our project teams. And I thought Michelle was going to jump on, but I know everyone's schedule has been crazy, right? So I didn't get a message from her, but I know Farm to School in general. I mean, I know what some of you folks have shared as far as some initiatives. The project that we've been working on kind of from the coalition perspective with Mason City, Hampton, Dumont, and Cal and West Fork school districts, we have an implementation grant application out to the USDA. We did hear back on that, at least for next steps with questioning. So we're keeping our fingers and toes and all of the things crossed that might be funded here. We should know by the end of June. Sarah just jumped on. So hopefully if that gets funded, we'll have even more exciting updates to come. But since Farm to School isn't quite rolling right now, besides some of the school gardens, that's kind of our update there, besides some great raised beds that have gone in and things like that. So Sarah just jumped on. We talked about North Iowa Fresh, and food waste is our presentation today. And really our fifth group is our community gardens group, which isn't really a group right now, so there's no update. But if any of you are interested in community gardens and want to have a side conversation team build out of this conversation, let me know. So that's my plea for today. But with that, let's get into some presentations. So we'll go down the list and kind of continue to learn from each other. And then if you have questions as they come up for different speakers, if you could type it in the chat, just so we make sure we address it, let the presenter keep going, and then we'll ask the question and then move on to the next one, and then kind of go into some group conversation as a whole. So with that, first up on my list is actually Amy Gilbert with Net Zero and telling us about upcycling and what they're doing there.
Hey, Marie?
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Mike. Can I interrupt? I just got an email from Sarah. She says she's waiting for someone to let her into the meeting.
There were two links on the invite. I'm here now, Michael.
Oh, there you are.
I was just literally hanging out for a
Okay.
half hour in a Google Hangout that was not this meeting. So I was like, okay, sweet. Okay, thanks, guys.
I didn't see you.
I figured it out.
Welcome, Sarah. Sorry about that. I don't know why my email keeps doing that sometimes. I'm glad you found us, and I'm glad in a way that you were alone, so that means no one else was awkwardly hanging out over there either. So good, thank you. And thanks, Mike, for doing that. So sorry about that. Amy.
Yeah, that's okay. What I have is, I guess, less of a presentation, more of just a little blurb on recent updates with the Upcycled Food Association. So yeah, as I mentioned, for Net Zero, our biggest project right now is upcycling spent grains from local breweries and distilleries, but we're also a member company of the new and growing Upcycled Food Association. So on May 19th, UFA announced the definition of upcycled foods. And so this definition includes foods that use ingredients that otherwise would not have gone to human consumption, are procured and produced using verifiable supply chains, and have a positive impact on the environment. So that is the decision that is the definition that the Upcycled Food Association came to. And the way they came to that was there was a task force behind the definition, which included representatives from universities such as Harvard and Drexel, organizations and nonprofits, including Refed and other food waste and food industry players. So the Upcycled Food Association has existed for just over 6 months now and has now defined this term, which around 70 different member and associate member companies and organizations have come together, you know, to decide that this was a term that mattered to them and that they felt applied to the products that they work with. So the next step for the Upcycled Food Association, sorry, I can't speak today. The next step for the Upcycled Food Association in this mission is creating standards surrounding this new upcycled foods definition that can be used to establish a certification process. So that, for example, you know, Net Zero could say we have upcycled certified grains, and can use that, you know, like the way that people will use like USDA organic certifications as like a marker on their products. So a new task force is now working on those certification standards, and a release date on those standards is still to be decided.
All right. Well, that's exciting as far as getting it certified and getting the definition out there. That's important for sure. Definitely, I know that's something we've struggled with in local food world for sure, is as far as like what is local and what does this mean and how does it impact all of us. So that's exciting. Amy, can you share real quick, well, as far as Net Zero, and you mentioned the pancake mix and spent grains, but just explaining what that process looks like for anybody who might not already know.
You mean the process of like getting the grains?
Yeah, basically from brewery to what your process looks like and product.
Yeah, so we work with a couple different breweries and distilleries in and around the Twin Cities, and basically they will have, you know, they put grains as an input into their beer or the alcohols that they're making, and only a very small portion of that is actually used in the final product. Most of it ends up kind of in this mash just with a bunch of water, because basically what they're extracting is just the sugars from those grains. So traditionally that mash, if a farmer can pick it up in the hours before it rots, then sometimes it'll become animal feed, but there's this excess of it that just goes to waste. But if you dry it out, you can use it as grain in products like, you know, cereals, or we add a little bit of just the straight grain to our pancake mix, but you can also mill it into a flour. So what Net Zero does is we work with these breweries and distilleries to either, it depends sort of, but either have them use like their technology to dry out that mash, or like take it somewhere else and have that processed. And then we take the dry grain and process it further to like dry it out all the way using infrared technology. And then we will either sell it to them as that grain, if like a restaurant wants to play around with just like straight spent grains, or we can mill it. And then people can use spent grain as a flour. And it doesn't become something that you would use like a one-to-one substitution with all-purpose flour. We usually incorporate it 20% spent grain flour of whatever kind you're using, and then 80% something else. But yeah, that's the basic process behind it.
Super interesting, for sure. And I know there's quite a few breweries in the area that work with local farmers, but that's such a unique, fun way to actually bring food directly onto people's tables, for sure.
It's kind of an intricate.
Yes. Jan did have a question as far as the range of products represented in the association.
Yeah, so in the Upcycled Food Association, so not all of the members are like just product companies like Net Zero. Some of them are other companies that, I mean, Net Zero also has our own technology platform, so that is a big part of our business, but there are some companies that are in Net Zero or in the Upcycled Food Association that like only work on the technology side and don't actually offer a product. We have some associate members that are organizations or labs or what have you that just work with testing. Like I believe that AURI and I think potentially Refed are associate members. But as for products, you know, we have stuff like Regrained that makes bars out of upcycled foods, multiple companies that make juices and smoothies out of like fruit mash and pulps. I think there are 1 or 2 other companies that also make spent grain flour or a few other upcycled flours as well. So yeah, it's a wide variety of both different types of upcycled food products and companies that are working in the food upcycling space, but not necessarily on the consumer product side.
Interesting. Well, it takes everybody to create a system, right? So that seems like a cool balance. I'm looking at Aubrey. I'm like, are you guys involved in that somehow? From no people.
I got to have some of the upcycled grain products while we were in California for Refed, and they were delicious.
There you go. Yes. We'll all have to get some of your pancake mix and follow the videos that Mallory and or Ellen are working on with those. That would be a fun coalition activity. Awesome. Well, thank you for that update. That's really interesting as far as that. And we thought it would be a good jump off point as far as understanding upcycling and what that looks like and what it means. And then looking at some of our other local examples. So next I had Mike talking about the Clear Lake food donation project between the farmers market and the food bank, at least last year, and what the hopes might be for the future.
Yes, well, we started it, thank you. We started it last year with the help of Andrea from the Clear Lake Farmers Market. And so we would the food pantry would have a booth at the farmers market, and Andrea and one of her assistants would go around and let all the vendors know we were there, and we also would meet them and let them know that if they had any surplus, we'd be happy to take it and give it to our clientele. And it worked out pretty well. I think we started late in the year, but I think we got about 400 pounds of food total, and it was food that probably would have gone wasted. And plus, it was a good educational thing from number one, from the consumers at the farmers market. A lot of them didn't even realize that there was a food bank in Clear Lake, and it was also an educational process for our clientele, because a lot of our clientele we discovered did not really know, weren't comfortable around fresh produce. A lot of our clientele were raised eating out of boxes and cans, and so it was, and especially as of late, and Sarah and I have talked about this as well, because she's had a similar experience she's going to share with you, which is kind of really cool. How we're going to talk about later about the videos is there is a good opportunity for education to be developed for our clientele, for our food insecure people to take advantage of and enjoy and use fresh produce. So it's kind of the one thing, a lesson learned from our program last year. And I'm thrilled to know that they just released the restrictions, because I've been walking my dog by the farmers market every week this summer, but haven't been able to be there. So hopefully we can get that going again, Andrea.
Yeah, definitely a great example of using that. And I know that is the general customer base, bringing things for donation to the food bank, as well as some of the vendors donating. So that's like, it's a great space, and we have people active. And Andrea at the lake over there.
Sorry. Yes, I just wanted to mention, we definitely want to get that started again, except that right now the producers are selling out of everything that they have. So having the food bank attend, it doesn't make sense at the moment. But as soon as we have products that are maybe left over, or if we have days where the weather's not as good, we definitely want to get it going again. And I mean, it worked really good for the market. And then we also tried to advertise that people from the general public, if they have extra stuff in their garden that they don't know what to do with, that they could just drop it at market. And it's a big, like Mike said, it's a big awareness thing about having the food bank in Clear Lake, because some people don't even know that that's an option of a place to drop product when they don't have anywhere else to send it. So better than the compost bin for sure.
And this might be a silly question, but no food banks are taking outside donations right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I was like, I don't think it's possible to do it right now, but.
No, right now, just because we're part of the Food Bank Iowa, and we're not allowed to accept donations because of the current situation. But hopefully that'll change someday soon.
Yeah, with the thing, I didn't realize that either, actually, because obviously our situation is different. With North Iowa Fresh is different, but with the farmers markets opening up last weekend to allow more of the different diversity of producers and craft vendors and stuff like that, maybe it's right down the line of the next step. So yeah, we'll just stay in touch.
Yeah, because I will say too, we're Food Bank of Iowa as well, and I know all of our partners are able to accept outside donations right now. So I'm not sure, maybe they've changed something recently, but we're still donating a lot of food to a lot of our local food partners.
To the food banks?
Something.
Yep, a lot of them are feeding Food Bank of Iowa partners. We have a lot that aren't, but we have a pretty good chunk that are also Feeding America Food Bank of Iowa.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, Avery.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we should check into that too.
Power of all the knowledge.
Yeah, no, I definitely will be reaching out to you, Avery.
Yeah. I might actually mix up the order. Aubrey, would you be willing to share your project next?
Happy to. Well, and I actually, because I have pictures, I have slides I can share. Do you want me to?
Yes, please. Go right ahead. And you should be able to share them. If you can't, let me know.
Let's see. All right. I will try this.
Yes.
All right. Everyone can see it?
Yep.
Okay, good. So so just for those of you that aren't familiar with Eat Greater Des Moines, we are really just a connection piece throughout the food system. So we don't serve any individuals directly. Our mission is to unite everybody in our community to make sure everyone has access to quality food. So that's kind of the big piece for us, is we're not the farmers market, we're not the food rescue organization serving clients or the gardens, we're just the matchmaker. So for food rescue, I think the main thing, our role is really just to educate, engage, and inform. So we are constantly just trying to find new donors, find new organizations or partners that we know are in the food space. And if they're in the food space, then they have extra food at some point. And so we want to help them find a partner in the community that's a good match. So that's a big role for us, and just making it easy on both sides. So easy for those who have excess product to find a great partner who can use the excess product. And again, making sure that's a good match on both sides. So our role is to connect the dots. So we have our smartphone app called Chow Bank that allows donors. It's a lot of times promoted more towards event centers, catering companies, those kind of one-off donations, so that they can, we've actually had a really active food photographer that's been donating a lot of food. I didn't realize that was going to be such a huge opportunity, but it's been amazing. So she's able to post, I think her last post, she had 21 pizzas that she had been photographing. So They're able to post what they have available. A text alert or email alert goes out to our partners, organizations that are signed up, and you do have to be an organization. We don't serve individuals. And then if it's something they want, they can accept it. If it's something that they don't use or don't need, they ignore it. So if it's they give it a time that it's available. Once it's accepted, then the donor and the recipient are connected and they're able to work out the details together. So I know for the pizzas, when I looked, it was actually our local VA facility, Community Resource Center, that they accepted the donation and they put them they serve a lot of veterans that come through. So we're happy to make that simple and easy. Our main thing that we've started doing we actually started in April of 2018. Really one of the big challenges outside of just people knowing that they can donate and knowing that they're protected by the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act. There's places that need it and can use it. It's been transportation. So a lot of our food pantry partners or free meal site partners or Big Brothers, Big Sisters, any of those organizations, a lot of them just don't have the capacity to do consistent regular pickups. And that really means a lot of food donors don't engage. So we started our partnership with Wesley Life in April of 2018 to pick up food from come and go locations 3 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then they deliver it to locations around the community. So, our big thing is we know that there's always an opportunity to to get this food somewhere else. So when COVID-19 happened, some of our biggest changes were within food rescue, our transportation. So like I said, we've been partnering with Wesley Life Meals on Wheels, their Mini Coopers, for 2 years. With COVID, their demand, they were doing a lot more meals and they needed all of their vehicles. So we were actually really fortunate to be able to hire some people who'd been furloughed and were looking for work and had large vehicles that we could outfit. So we did give them masks. We transitioned to no contact deliveries. And I can share a little bit more about that. But our locations, we also went from delivering food from around 40 locations to 10. So when all the schools closed, those were a lot of our partners, our housing communities. A lot of the times when we were taking food to apartment complexes, it was going into their community room and they weren't opening those because that wasn't safe at the time. So we didn't miss a day, we didn't miss a delivery, but we definitely had to obviously need increased dramatically at that time. We just had to shift where food was going. So these are part of our pictures for our no contact. They spray everything down. And then when they deliver it, so they don't talk to they might talk to them, but there's no contact when they go into come and go. And then when they leave it at the location, they just leave it outside and then the partner comes to get it. One of the other things that has happened, and I don't know, this has been, is our Operation Fresh Produce Drop. So this was another situation where we were working with our two, Lafredo Fresh Produce in Capital City. A lot of their customers were restaurants and caterers and school districts. And so they had a lot of inventory that they were looking to move. So initially we started off just opening it up to all of our food rescue partners. They were selling $4 cases. There was a lot of lemons and limes that were available right there when things closed. So there was some of those, but also just other bulk product that they have. That has since turned into the USDA Farm to Food program. So now we are working with both of those organizations and are moving 1,700 of these boxes. So we have the personal box, a family box, the big box. You can see they range from 7 to 30 pounds, a dairy box, and then a mixed dairy produce box. So they are delivering boxes Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then we have around each time 40 different organizations that come and pick up the foods. You can see this is one of the distributions. It's a lot of boxes and a lot of milk. So we have been doing that for about a month and a half. So again, not only are we serving our usual food rescue, we've also been purchasing or providing boxes to our food rescue partners as well. So we're delivering produce boxes to all of our food rescue partners, including Big Brothers Big Sisters has been offering boxes to their families. One of our newer partners, we have a lot of churches and refugee and immigrant services that are programs that have really stepped up to serve their communities. So they might not have been in the food space originally, but they've really been doing a lot to try and meet the needs of their community. We also have a bunch of in-home daycares and daycare centers that have been ordering every week that we've been providing delivery to. So the last of our food rescue projects that just started with COVID, like I mentioned, there's been a lot of product that's available that's in bulk. So we have a partnership with Des Moines Area Religious Council that was funded through our local disaster recovery fund. So we've been getting either donations or purchasing at a good price product that's available in bulk. So the problem has been a lot of the bulk or product that was available, because it's in bulk, it might be like a 5-pound bag of cheese or a 100-pound bag of beans, which is not able to be distributed through the food pantry network. So we've been purchasing or accepting those donations. Then we pay local catering companies. We're working with Tangerine Food Company pretty heavily to repackage it into family-sized individual items. So you can see some of the beans and quinoa. We've had some spices. We just did granola this last week. We're doing pizza upcoming. So we have a bunch of fish. We have it's like 11,000 fillets that we have that we're trying to figure out what to do with, and that's proving to be a little bit more difficult. But really, we've just been trying to help keep things moving, and that has involved a lot of pivoting, like most places at this time. So yeah,
wow.
That's me.
Yeah, that's a lot of really wonderful work.
Thanks.
I know I'm super intrigued about like refrigeration and what that looks like. So I mean, you mentioned fish, you mentioned some other products that would definitely be temperature sensitive. What does that look like for your work?
We have been renting a refrigerated truck for the produce drops after that first one, when we realized how much milk it was because we had to move so quickly. So we've rented a refrigerated truck, but then we've also today Lafredo just brought a refrigerated truck and left it there. So then we're able to keep the milk cold while we do the drop. There's also a DNR grant available right now because we have had some of our partners who needed more refrigeration. So that's something we've been doing for at least a year, is providing refrigeration. We had actually just provided a glass front refrigerator to Perry Library so they could accept and distribute food rescue, and then it closed, but they still have that glass front refrigerator and they're ready to get started once it opens again. But we want to make sure that refrigeration isn't a reason why a place isn't getting food. Our biggest challenge too has been access to a forklift because we don't own any space or equipment. So right now we're working out of Principal Park, but that's getting warmer. So we're trying to find a new location. And if you had a location here in Des Moines, you might have gotten a phone call from me recently. I've reached out to all of our schools and event centers, and we're getting close. So hopefully we'll be announcing our new location soon.
Ooh.
Very exciting.
That. Yes. Wow. Yeah. I know that can definitely be a barrier though for smaller pantries and food banks and whatnot in the area. I mean, it's a great idea to have some of this product, but if you can't store it, it's just gonna go bad and not be able to be used. I know Mason City is the one I've been to. I know they have a refrigerator, but I'm sure that others I have other examples. Other questions?
I will say too, our affordable housing communities have been able to start accepting donations again. So instead of having, well, they still have it stored in their community space, but if instead of just having people come in, Sutton Hill Apartments is a good example of one of our partners. They put out a menu of everything that's available, and then their clients are able to send a message or send a text and say what they need, and then they'll bag it up and put it outside or drop it off at their door. So the apartment complexes are figuring it out and starting to get more food out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you guys are working on a big scale in a large area for sure as far as Iowa is involved, but it's interesting to hear the barriers as well as the successes that you guys have experienced too.
And there's only 3 of us, so we're definitely a small shop, but we're figuring it out. So, and we're happy to help pass along any of the stuff that are lessons learned or resources or things that could help another group get going.
Awesome. That's why we love you guys. Any questions for Aubrey? Okay. Keep an eye on that. Courtney and Bree from ISU FFED team. I need to learn your name better. I know. I'm sorry.
It's a mouthful. So, you know what? Honestly, internally, our system hasn't figured it out yet either. We are supposed to be FED, and we're actually called Feed. So, don't worry about it. It's fine.
It looks so similar.
Exactly. It's food, right? I'm going to give a little overview of a project that we've been working on. We have some slides, but last minute I started thinking about, we haven't actually gotten to present this to Lynn County yet because COVID has occurred. And so before that gets published and things, we can share our process and some of the findings that we have, but wanted to keep the data and information private until we're able to publicly share that after they review it. So all of that being said, we worked with Lynn County Public Health over the course of the last 6 months or so on a food rescue assessment for their county. And when I say we, Bree and I work with FED, which is housed within Ag and Natural Resources Extension at Iowa State. So we're located on campus, but get to work statewide, as well as have some national projects and some certification programs that Marie has been involved with as well. So we do several different types of programming across the food system. So this was one that we worked in specifically in regards to food waste, food donation, and general resource management. A big part of the project was also identifying the different partners, which many of you have talked about in your own communities. The language we were using to define the different groups were first what we called food distributors, because we were really interested in food businesses that were donating product to either food banks or to food pantries or other service providers. So that was the first group we looked at, were food distributors, or basically licensed food businesses that may be interested in food donation. The second entity that we worked with was HACAP, is the food bank in Lynn County. So we met with them to understand their current practices. And they're really unique. They cover a large area. They also offer their own mobile food pantries in different aspects too, to connect directly to the community, in addition to being the food bank or food warehouse. The third group we worked with then were service providers. So those were any of the entities or nonprofits that were the organization directly giving food to individuals. So that include like meal programs, food pantries, and a few other nonprofit organizations, churches, things like that, that were that direct space where people could pick up food that needed it. And then the last group that we got to work with were individuals, the people actually utilizing the food that was donated and taking that home. So our main interest, I guess, throughout this study was to understand the opportunities for food donation going forward, and also the challenges that organizations and businesses were facing and how we might be able to address that. I will share that the public health group holds their own food rescue committee. And so they'd been meeting regularly. So there was already a group of stakeholders that really had some ideas about goals in mind for next steps. So they had already reached out to Aubrey and a few other folks about just like what are best practices going on around the state and around the country. And so we did know that an app of some sort, based on all the successes you just heard, was going to move forward. So that was something we took into consideration as well. I'm gonna hand it over to Bree to talk through our process, and then I'll wrap up with some of the opportunities that we identified.
Perfect, thanks, Courtney. So I'm just going to really briefly touch on our methodology for this research. We obviously had primary data and secondary data. So we conducted interviews, which Courtney already touched on with those various target groups. And then we also had surveys for each of those target groups to further understand what is going on in the county. So with the food distributors, with that first group, we were curious to understand food waste, product type, quantity, frequency. We also asked about food donation and recovery methods, and then businesses that are interested in food donation, and then challenges. And the challenges was a big portion of this that stayed the same for food distributors and service providers. So it dealt with logistics, staffing and volunteers, policy and regulations, and then funding. So I'll just really briefly touch on some of the main findings from the surveys. So for the food distributors, the main people that participated in this were food retailers. We also had restaurants, caterers, schools, grocery stores, had a couple of hotels, convenience stores, but the majority of those were just regular food retailers of some sort. The main type of food waste or product that was wasted was fresh produce, followed by dairy, and then prepared meals. And fresh produce was being wasted all across the board for a frequency. So like it was being wasted on a daily basis from 12 businesses, a weekly basis, and then also a monthly basis. And then also meat and dairy were also very high for that food waste. Current efforts for food waste management and reduction methods, the majority of the businesses were not reducing food at all, meaning they were throwing it away. So that was 60 businesses. And then food donated to service providers for human consumption, that was 36, so roughly half of those. And then followed by sharing with staff, clients, and others was closely followed. Moving into the challenges for food distributors, the main challenge was staffing and volunteers, followed by policy and regulation issues, and then also logistics. I just also want to say that something we noticed with food distributors was there seemed to be kind of a disconnect between attitude and action. So a lot of food businesses were saying that they weren't aware that they could donate. They didn't know donation options. They weren't aware of the policies behind that, and therefore they simply weren't donating. So that also could be why so many businesses said that they were simply throwing away and not reducing or donating any food. Service providers, we're really trying to understand the type of products that they are serving, as well as equipment that they have access to, and challenges again. So we had 9 food pantries involved in this survey, 7 shelters, 4 meal programs, and then 4 other organizations. And the majority of those served meals on a weekly basis. Freezers, refrigerators, and dry storage were the service providers had access to those the most. Not very many people had access to licensed kitchens. So we heard quite often that they were not able to process some of the foods that were coming in to be donated. So some of that stuff was not being used appropriately. And then moving into challenges, again, staffing and volunteers was the highest challenge we found for service providers, followed by logistics, and then again, regulation and policy. So the same top three for both of these target audiences. Individuals, we were simply trying to understand, you know, what kind of products do you want to see more of? So we did ask for specific products. So items like cheese, apples, carrots, oranges, and then ham, chicken, and turkey were some of the highest, with the highest counts for requested products. And then we also wanted to understand just kind of the comparison between individuals that are requesting the products and then what service providers are believing that they want. And there was some disconnect with that. So that's just was kind of interesting to see. So for example, like many individuals were requesting fresh produce, but service providers were not necessarily believing that they wanted that because that was one of the categories that they had a lot of waste in. So they believed that people were not taking it because they didn't want it, when in fact that is not correct according to our survey. So that's just really interesting. I'm going to let Courtney wrap up with the opportunities and next steps a little more.
So what we also were able to do is compare what the food distributors had shared in terms of their products that were most wasted, what service providers were providing, and also what the individuals were requesting. And so the other piece to this then was looking at those discrepancies between them. So for example, I'll use the fresh produce as well. As mentioned, fresh produce was the highest wasted product for distributors, but it was the most highly requested product for individuals. So we're hoping to figure out ways that you could match those products better to get them to consumers in a way that they could utilize the product. Now, that's an easy thing to say, but without things like a Chow Bank app or logistics or equipment or storage to support that, it's really challenging. And most of the products would need cold storage or some means of adding value to that product to make it more shelf stable. So the three opportunities that we saw come up, and I already alluded to one being the app, was first, really in regards to making it easier for businesses and organizations to connect. And I think eGreater Des Moines and the Chow Bank has shown that as a success already. So that was one. What we have proposed in the report is some potential suggestions to include in the questions in regards to like what types of storage and equipment capacity do service organizations have? What is the ability for organizations to distribute, or do you need help in picking it up? Are there volunteers that will help source those things? The second piece that we identified was promotion and awareness and general clarifications on food donation policies and regulations. So the Good Samaritan Act does allow for all organizations to do donations, but there's still concerns by businesses on the legal implications that could happen from food donation. And so wanting to have more like awareness campaigns, marketing campaigns on the benefits, on the successes that have occurred, and what options there are available right now. And then last is continued collaboration. And I think, again, you all have already talked about this, but just the need for continued connections and building those relationships and conversations for how to do that work. So those are a few of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, that people could move forward with. Additional ideas were about finding those organizations that do have licensed kitchens. There are a few programs in that area that have access to those things. There may be an option down the road of having a processing opportunity for products that are donated that could add value or build in shelf stable product development, meals, packaging. We talked to one college that was really interested in, they have all these bulk meals that they'd like to donate, but they don't have a service provider, for example, that could use meals. They don't have a hot holder and those types of things. So if they had a way of packaging into individual meals and getting those out to consumers, that would be a really beneficial product. But there isn't necessarily an organization with the time and capacity to do that. So looking at some of those innovative strategies, I think, is the next step too. With all of that said, we're happy to take questions. I will certainly share the report once I have the green light from the funder as well.
Yeah, and I think that those findings are really interesting because from a lot of you that I've talked to about on this topic, I mean, that discrepancy between with the fresh produce, service providers not thinking that their clientele desire fresh produce or know how to use it, or what does that look like, yet the client's actually requesting it. I mean, that has to be number one across the board, right? And I see a lot of head nods, so that's a good sign. But that's something that we've come up with, whether it's NIF or one of the gardens or farms donating. I mean, how do we look at that barrier even on a smaller scale, and how can we address that together?
Yeah, and I wanted to share too, Maria, on that point, one thing that we didn't get to research is gleaning options or on-farm donations that I think could be a valuable thing to address, because farmers markets are doing great things right now. There's certainly lots of options. We were asked to specifically look at licensed food businesses and retailers, so that was the focus of our study. But I do think there are several options, and certainly with COVID and supply chain issues across the board, it'll be interesting to see where things go there. So, yeah.
I'd say we're definitely expanding we started gleaning late last fall, and it was after meeting Boston area gleaners through the refed, the food rescue. So we're actually looking at trying to replicate that here. And the best part about it is it actually pays the farmer, the local farmer, for the product. So we bring the labor, but pay the farmer for the product and then handle getting it out. And they've really done an amazing job building a local food system distribution, like Food Hub, with their gleaning program. So that's who we're looking to try to replicate.
Cool.
Who's that, Aubrey?
They're called Boston Area Gleaners Bag. I'll put a link to their website in the chat. They're amazing.
And I don't know if you guys know about this, but master gardeners in areas do gleaning. And so I know Aubrey, Des Moines has a giant master gardener program, and it's, they have the hand washing, they have all the Iowa State science behind it. So it's not just, your run of the mill, just picking people's produce off. So just wanted to let you know, master gardeners may be somewhere where you can partner. I'm sure Courtney and Bree knew that.
Yeah, Sarah, that's an awesome point. Growing Together is a great program, collaborating with Human Sciences. Jim and Dennis, I don't know if that's the group you guys are working with too in terms of your food donation, but.
Cooling and freezing. Throw an awful lot of.
So many great notes. Yes. Those of you who know I'm from Massachusetts, of course, Boston Area Gleaners makes my heart happy because they are amazing in what they're able to accomplish. But it would be amazing to connect some of these pieces. I mean, to your point about master gardeners growing together, I know various extension offices in the area have expressed either restarting or revamping their master gardener program and looking for an opportunity.
And we are having a training in Cerro Gordo. Send your people here. Woo! Starting August 6th. Sorry, I got loud kids in the background.
Okay, Cerro Gordo Extension having the training. August 6th, right? Yes. Okay, I'll put that in the notes. Awesome. Yeah, I think that would be a great opportunity to talk about For sure. What that could look like. I do want to make sure everybody can speak. So Jim, do you and Lauren want to talk about your donation garden and farm really at the fairgrounds and what that's looked like?
And we could talk about a lot of things, but she's going to so I don't rattle on and on. But I love listening to everyone. Aubrey, we've been working with Northeast Iowa Food, and Lauren will talk about that. Amy, I'd love to bring some kids up to Minneapolis and see your things. And then the presentations we went through, Brett, who had to leave because we have kids working in the garden, he went to check on them. And I have been very involved in the World Food Prize and had a lot of students go through that. So this has been, we've had speakers from all over the United States talk about the food glean. So I'm just really interested in all that. I'm going to just talk for a few minutes about, we have a lot of different things going from, and Lauren will highlight all of them. But since we're sitting in the ag shop, we're very fortunate here. I'm just going to show you. So we have our own tractor with our own rotor tiller. And somebody said they needed some forklifts. We have our own forklifts right here. And then our newest purchase is we just bought a 2-row corn planter. So, and we have a sprayer. So we have lots of equipment. Oh yeah, I gotta show you one other thing. Lauren, let me show you. We have a tricycle that's a watering tricycle. I don't know if you can see it. She'll talk about that later, but we do lots of fundraising and we invest a lot of money back in things like that. And Lauren will show you some of that. And the reason I bring that up and showed you that is because a lot of times we get that as so, we have very diversified population in Charles City. And we're really big at bringing all kinds, we just want farm kids in our ag program. We want everybody in our ag program. And so everybody can have a garden. So we have 2 smaller rotor tillers. We have a giant rotor tiller. We go around the county and we till up gardens for kids and families. And we've been doing that for a long time. And we've had gardens up here at the high school for a long time. And a lot of them have just been individual student gardens. Some of it goes to the food box. A lot of it just goes home to their families. I'm going to stop talking. Every once in a while in my career, certain kids get dropped into your life. The young lady that's going to talk to you now is one of them. She is such a remarkable kid. She's all about helping other people. And I'm not kidding you. She's just remarkable. And I'm just going to turn it over to her and just let her talk about some of this. Service learning is a big thing we try to push in Charles City in our ag program here. And she gets it. So that's why we have her here today. I'm just going to turn it over to her. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna push screen share. Oh,
Okay,
how do I do this?
turn up
Right
your
here?
volume.
Okay. Share. How do I get so I can?
Click on the first slide on top.
You're right here. How do I present it?
Okay, just go down.
Click the share in the right corner.
Let me turn up my volume. How do I?
Go to file, present.
Technology is always our friend.
Is it not under view or present? If you hit present.
Oh, there we go. My little. Okay.
Teamwork.
Yeah. Okay. So our big thing with all kids, not just farm kids, but kids that live in the city, is a service learning SAE. And an SAE is a supervised agriculture experience. And so I first am going to go through some of our food security ones. As COVID-19 hit, these ones are up in the top of the lineup and are having the most attention right now. But we also have some that we do all year round and have been doing for a while. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is our beehives. We have our beehives out at our fairgrounds, just kind of away from everyone at the fair, and we harvest the honey. FFA members do. So Mr. Lundberg went and drove and got 2 hives of bees, and then we check on them, and then all of the honey and everything is going to go to the food pantry eventually and later in the season. The second thing that I'm going to talk about is our SAE programs, and it's called an SAE for All. And so it's not just focused on production in agriculture or everything on the farm. It's more becoming the living to serve part of the SAE model and of the FFA model. And so a couple of pictures that I have here is me tilling my garden, my personal garden, that I do donate all of the vegetables and the produce to our Jordan River food pantry. All the way to the right, I started after COVID-19 hit. I put something on Facebook about how I had access to a tiller and I would come, no contact, just tell me where you live and is there any other obligations that you needed to tell me before I came and tilled your garden. And I came out with a mask and the FFA tiller, and I actually tilled community gardens for people in their backyards, because we do have an older community and there are a lot of people that contacted me saying like, I wouldn't have been able to have a garden. And the picture of me in front of Tyson's is me picking up plants for an older guy that could actually not leave his house because he had underlying health issues. So I went and picked up his plants, and then I went and tilled his garden, and it's just awesome to see the connections that you get to make with people that I would have never known this guy, and he's forever grateful. And it's awesome to see you hands-on helping other people in the community. Our newest project is our raised beds, and we were on a Zoom meeting a couple weeks ago with all of the listed people, and we came up with a couple different models of what these were going to look like. And then there are 8 raised beds with the big picture in the middle is what they look like in the end, and they are lined with netting, so they'll be high enough on the ground so that people don't have to reach down and work from the ground. So these will go to 8 different families. And Lundberg, if you want to jump on in, do you have anything else about this? No?
No, they're going out tomorrow afternoon, Lauren. You knew that though.
Yeah.
It's actually, we ended up working with community housing, low-income housing in the community, and 8 families said they wanted these. And so there were 8 of them built. The picture over on the left with Lauren with the drill, our first ones were 4x4 and they were down on the ground, and they came in and said, no, those won't work. We want them 2x4 and up in the air. So we rebuilt them all. And then last Friday, you can see their social distancing, and when they're not, they had masks on. We built 8 of them in about 3 hours on Friday morning. This was a Master Gardener grant. So going back to what you people were talking about earlier, they're paying for these. We fell into that, so that's kind of a good thing. I'm gonna get off, Lauren.
Okay, so that's kind of our newest project, and we all came together, and it was more than just me taking initiative at that point. It was having other people that hadn't had the chance to be a part of this community fighting hunger thing. And so it's cool to see other faces than just mine taking initiative and stepping up for a good cause. One of the other new things that we have through our community is a new FFA garden at the Fairgrounds. And the picture on the right is Steve Swartzrock taking the sod out of the garden plot, and then Spurgeon, is our other ag advisor, is spraying it. This was the start of our large garden, and the large building in the background of the picture is a $1.5 million Charles City FFA Enrichment Center. It was built in 2016, and then, as I said before, Steve Swartzrock is helping us get the ground all ready to plant. The planting occurred not just exclusive to Charles City, but we wanted it kind of our whole Floyd County. So the picture on the left is Rockford planting the potatoes at the Floyd County Fairgrounds. And then we have the tractor and the planter that Lundberg had showed you earlier, planting sweet corn. And then the bottom is just today, and we had 10 FFA members go out and plant peppers and watermelon and cabbage and replant some more potatoes because of all the rain that we had gotten in the past. It washed some of them up, so they kind of just filled in the patches to maximize all the produce that we're going to be able to get at the end of the season. The Northeast Iowa Food Truck is another project, and at first when the governor came out with us saying that we couldn't go back to school, and a couple of the Iowa State Extension, and there were other websites that were talking about the need for food security, and so I contacted our local food bank, and the pastor there that is in charge of the food bank gave us the opportunity to come out, 10 FFA members with masks, and help the National Guard distribute food boxes into people's trunks. And we bring 10 new FFA members each time, so it's not the same people getting the opportunity to see the impact that they have on the community, but we've had 30 members now going through each week. And it's really cool to see just how many people in the community are impacted by our help, because even with doing the garden tilling and everything else, I did not know that there is this many people in the community that were needing food and that this impacted first-handedly.
I'll just say the first week we did this, it was 3 hours straight. The car after car after car. And tomorrow we're doing it again at 11:15. Another truck's coming into town tomorrow, so we got a group of kids lined up.
All right, our school raised beds are the next pictures that are below, and we have 5 raised beds. We filled them with dirt and we planted them early in the season, and that was also an FFA member. We got the tiller and we tilled them all up, and then Otto's Oasis, one of our small businesses in town, ended up donating some of the seeds to go into these, and then we had a couple extra tomato plants, so we planted those and made the cages for them. The vegetables that we get at the end of the season, last year we took some of them to the teacher's lounge so that they were part of the school kind of still, and then we donated a lot of cucumbers and peppers and different things to the food bank, and they were very, very, very grateful. And that was another cool thing to just see the connections and how happy people were to get this fresh produce firsthand. Some other projects that we have is the Nebraska trip that we took in 2019, and the Rockford and FFA chapters went down to Schuyler, Nebraska, and we helped a family farm that was devastated by the flood. And so a couple of pictures here are us just cleaning out the fence and helping them try to get their farm put back together. And you kind of just see all of the cattle that were lost by the flood, and firsthand, not just food security, but the impact that we have when we are serving others. This is our watering plant on Main Street. In 2015, the Charles City wrote a grant and they purchased the custom trike that Mr. Lundberg showed you earlier. And we have a sign-up sheet, and 2 FFA members go each week and they water the flowers on Main Street. We put up flags on Main Street, and it's over 100 flags 5 times a year. Those holidays, we take the city truck and we hang them up. Last year, our Floyd County Fairgrounds was hit by an F1 tornado, and I and all of our other FFA members spent lots of hours out there cleaning up this tornado mess. And it's crazy to think that the fairgrounds looked like this last year, because with lots of hard work from the FFA members and all of the board members and everyone in our community, the Floyd County Fairgrounds does not look like this anymore. And it's really cool because we are planning to have everything complete by Fair of 2021. And so this kind of just went along with serving, because everyone came out and helped us with the cleanup, and everything was cleaned up enough to put up a building and a playground and a barn for the kids, and then also that big garden that we had the opportunity to put out there. And then that was just a thing that our FFA chapter made. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Lundberg?
Nope, that's all I have.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this to you.
Awesome. You guys are doing some amazing work up there, that's for sure. I'm curious if you all have had the experience with distributing to the food bank, clientele and whatnot. I mean, if you've heard any feedback as far as the desire for fresh produce or not, or any insight into that piece of it from your program.
Okay, what I was going to say, and Dennis asked a little bit earlier, and Brett had to leave. I wish he was here, but okay, so this is with the extension office, the ISU extension office, and it's the grant that they have, but all of our produce has to be weighed when we harvest it. Like the plants we're planting today, the peppers and that Lauren said they're planting today, one of the greenhouses closed down on Sunday. They were done. And so we went and picked up all their extra vegetables, and we actually bought them from them at a really reduced price. But then we used some of that grant money from the Master Gardeners program to help pay for that. Brett knows much more about this than I do, so I wish he was here to explain it. But Dennis asked about that. And the Northeast Iowa Food Bank, we've already made connections with them, and they are getting some of this produce that we're harvesting. One last thing, and I do know with the raised beds, the Master Gardener person told me that since we're not weighing those and those people are getting the food off of it, we put together just a piece of paper like a spreadsheet, so that when they pick 3 tomatoes, we want them to write the date and they pick 3 tomatoes, so we can document what they harvested from the raised beds. So
I can pass along, we have a tool, a website that we share with our gardeners that you can estimate how much it produced. It's an online tool that can give you some estimates for poundage.
The Growing Together is through the SNAP program. So they have the weight requirement because of that. And then it's your local Master Gardeners that apply for it. And I put the link to it if you want to look at it on the thing, but it's only open like a weird time in January. So you have to be planning, it's a weird time.
Thank you, old friend.
I can't shake you, Jim. I can't shake you.
Jan has a question about Trail City FFA. Are you providing gardening support as well, or the working with Master Gardeners for that? And I know that's something we're working on.
Yeah, that's it. Right. We talked about it, and Marie's been on all of a lot of our meetings we've had with that. The Master Gardeners are doing it, and also there's a group in Charles City called the CIA. I forget what it stands for. Their Community Improvement Association. There we go. And it's been around for like 120 years, and it's a very elite group, I'll say that. And they are also donating their time to go and help these families. Things like, we're a little late getting this project started, but we have big tomatoes to plant in them and everything else, but we also have a lot of seed. So when it cools down in the fall, we can go out and say, okay, you can plant some lettuce again, get some fresh lettuce and some fresh spinach. And so they're going to help them with all of that. The FFA will offer a little bit of that, but mostly I think the adults are going to take over that part. And part of that is because of the COVID and keeping the kids kind of protected.
Very true. Yeah, I know, and it did come up quick, and just kind of putting the pieces together and what it all looks like. That's part of good collaboration and communication, right? Is everyone can play a role in that for sure, hopefully. I recognize the time, and my concern going into today was like, there's so many great people and so many great things that the problem that we're going to run over is probably likely. So if anybody has to jump off, totally understand. But bye, Sarah. The final piece that I know I wanted to at least connect into all of this, and then maybe hear some thoughts or share some connections here, was the education component that Mallory mentioned, as well as Ellen, as far as Healthy Harvest recipe cards and recipe videos and or demonstrations, and how that piece can kind of weave in together with any of this. And if that's a need from you, from the local projects, what does that look like? Where are your needs? How can we connect from there?
Sent those messages.
You just click on. And that was a vague statement, less of a question, more of a statement. But we have recipe cards. Mallory and I have talked quite a bit as far as how we can fill that need, and how, even like practically, what makes most sense. And maybe you all are the folks that have the product for the donation, and maybe it's continuing the conversation with the service providers to allow us to have a greater understanding of what that can look like on that end, but at least knowing that we have the resource in your conversations and how we can connect, if that makes sense. See some head nods, that works. Well, I can also open it up to you all. I mean, are there questions that you have for each other, ideas that you want to throw out? Are you done because it's 5 o'clock and you want to like go out and enjoy the day? That's fine too. Thanks. Yep. Chores. It's all right. Shrinking group.
I do want to comment. Is Courtney still with us?
Yep.
Courtney, this is Mike. Are you going to share that your survey, the results you did once you get county to bless it?
Yeah, we'll share that report as soon as we get the green light from Lynn County. So that should be available soon.
And when you use the term service providers, what do you classify as a service provider?
Yeah, so kind of your partner agencies, I think from the food bank perspective, the same group. So the pantries, meal programs, senior sites, we just use that definition, that term, I should say, to constitute any group that was the direct contact for the individuals getting food.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, for sure. It was ironically kind of challenging to decide the right terms to use because there's so many different words out there. So
yeah, sure. And now in your research, was this done pre-COVID?
It was half and half. So we got to do probably 11 face-to-face interviews and a couple meetings and some discussions in February. And then in March, when we were going to have more focus groups and some planning, obviously that couldn't happen. So we were really fortunate to partner with HACAP and the Food Rescue Committee because they helped push out the surveys. So we still had about, I want to say it was like 160 or 170 food businesses that participated. We had 17 to 18 service providers, and then 160 or so individuals that completed the surveys. So we still had a really good number for one county to go through that information. So I was still pleasantly surprised, I guess, at the amount of data we received in spite of COVID. And it was fascinating. Just there were so many differences between pre-COVID and what we were hearing from folks, and then post-COVID talking to food pantries, for example, the need for food and not being able to get it due to all of the challenges of COVID now. It will be interesting on how that moves forward. So have you seen similar changes, Mike?
Not as much as we expected. We thought we were going to get really slammed with COVID from my food pantry, but we really, knock on wood, I guess it's a blessing. We've only had about a 15% increase in our clientele.
Okay.
I anticipated it. I mean, the North Iowa Food Bank is up 31%. So we were half of that. So, I mean, we had half the percentage of increase. But that's as far as volume of food that's going out of the food bank.
Interesting. So. Yeah. I would share too that if anyone's looking at doing assessments on their own, we're happy to share like the questions and things like that too. I don't know what the next steps are from this conversation, Marie, but if those are things that are at all helpful, happy to help in that regard too.
For sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I don't necessarily have a vision of next steps. If nothing else, I wanted you all to be able to hear about what each other were doing and see each other as resources and let the ideas flow from there. So
could I have a question of Dennis? Yeah, you better than anyone right now, struggling with kids and working with them and social distancing. And it's been a real challenge. And I've been called under the rug a few times for having too many kids in one spot, but it's really hard to hold back on it. Are you facing a little bit of that same thing?
Well, we just had a hog show that happened today in our county that I wasn't part of at all. Can you believe that, Jim? It's our 4-H FFA kids, and they had a big hog show out in the west part of the county here, and I think it went well, I heard. But I was told by our extension council, told by ISU, the state 4-H office, that we need to kind of hold on, especially since we're having a June county fair. but I'm pretty sure there was probably not social distancing. I'm going to guess today. Don't know for sure.
I'll let you know.
We're trying to do everything virtually with our livestock shows and stuff.
I'll let you know they called and wanted to borrow our pins and we said no.
Did they really?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, well, I think they ended up getting us talked into at least getting pens out to this farm today. And I just set up things for sheep. They're going to end up doing that in July, just because we think we'll kind of know some more things by then. So so far our sheep families are saying they wouldn't want to do something on a farm face to face. Plus we've got poultry we're going to do. I think Sarah's on board here. We're going to talk about doing a Zoom meeting with them a week from tonight with our poultry kids. And we'll do showmanship. We'll do judging of the chickens, and all that will happen a week from tonight too. So yeah, this has been a kind of a challenge for sure, but hope we're not doing it again next year. But the good news is I think the general public kind of gets it, and they seem to be pretty supportive. Fair Board was very, very cooperative as far as saying, you know, if you aren't going to do it, we totally get it. And they've been really on the same page with us the whole time, and we've been pretty happy about. Overall, it's been pretty positive.
I have to hop off for another thing at 5:30. It was great to see you all in chat. Talk to you soon.
Bye, Courtney. Thank you.
I'm here. Thank you for putting this together, Marie. Good job. Thank you, everybody.
Enjoy the information. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck with all of your programming, and thank you all for everything you do.